Can you see that?
No, can't see that. And we're
Oh,
live. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to the Voice of the Capes Matric Revision session on our Facebook and YouTube platforms. If you are viewing today's lesson and you have not yet shared the post, then please do share it with anyone that who can benefit from today's lesson. I think the next few weeks are very critical for our matriculants as they prepare for the final examination of their schooling career, and that obviously would determine, where they head to in the next year, inshallah, after they matriculate. So we do make dua that Allah facilitates the educational process throughout the next few weeks in terms of their studying and revision. Allah opens their minds and allow the information to actually stick in there, and they'd be able to obviously also share that and answer the questions to the best of their ability. But my guest today is Mrs. Nishat Dastagir. She is an educator at the Darul Arqam Islamic High School. They are based in Mitchell's Plain, and she is specializes in the home language of English. And today we are covering the topic, the literature essay, which is covered in paper 2. Is that correct?
yes.
Yes. So I'll hand over to you, Miss, to continue. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all our listeners and our viewers. Welcome to the second week of paper 2, which is our literature paper. So this week we'll be looking at the literature essay or the literary essay. Last week we have covered the poetry essay. This week we'll be looking at section B and section C, which is both have or consist of a literature essay with contextual questions. Okay, so let's carry on. Okay, without further ado, let's start with today's lesson, which is the literary essay. Okay, so what is a literary essay basically? So, the literary essay is an essay which includes an argumentative or a discursive analysis of a piece of literature. Obviously, how do we determine whether it is argumentative or discursive? We obviously look at the type, at how the question is being answered, and then based on that question, right, we sort of discover or we make a judgment from there whether this is an argumentative or a discursive analysis of a piece of literature. So you all remember that the argumentative essay is where you argue for or against a certain analysis or statement or whatever. And so all the arguments or all the points or all the evidence, right, will point in a certain direction. And that is obviously for you to substantiate your point of view. Okay, and then we'll have a look at the discursive analysis. The discursive analysis is obviously where you discuss both the pros and cons, right, of a certain statement or point that the writer has put in place. And obviously, you will have a little bit of a bias or a prejudice approach to the discursive analysis because at the end of the day, you still need to make a decision, even though it is discursive. Okay, so in this type of essay, the writer examines the book, the novel, or the play, etc. So you examine it. Okay, you examine it and you see and you ask yourself crucial questions like, what is this book about? Actually, what is the book trying to teach us? And I always like to tell my learners that if a piece of literature doesn't bite you and suck you in, it definitely is not worth reading. Okay, so in this type of essay, the writer examines the book, the novel, or the play. Right? Then the learner will analyze the idea. So, what is the ideas behind writing the book? Obviously, you'll look at the plot. Okay, what is the the plot is basically what is it based on. Okay, then we'll have a look at the characters. In other words, each character, and that's why you have a character analysis, right? So each character is sort of represents something in a novel or a drama. Then we look at the tone, right? Is it melancholic? Is it fictional? Is it thoughtful, etc., etc. Right? So remember, the tone is the writer's feelings towards something, right? Feelings or understanding of something, and the mood is how the piece of literature makes the reader feel. Then we have the different writing styles. So you remember, is it again, is it fictional? Is there a certain way of writing? Because you must remember, certain writers get writers' license to do certain things. So why is it written in a certain way? Then we have the devices that the writer uses to narrative to narrate his or her story, right? So that is basically what the writing styles are. Okay, so this type of essay encourages the learner to think. So this type of essay writing, right, or the study of literature in general, right, is meant to help learners develop an opinion, right? And to encourage the thinking process. So you need to think about the world that we are a part of the societies that we're a part of, and how do we contribute to societies, and how the rules and the laws that are put down in a certain society, how it contributes to our lifestyle, and whether or not it actually does. So that is what a literary essay is basically. So, common points which should be written about in a literary essay. So, these are the type of things that you should cover. If you should cover it in your introduction or your conclusion or somewhere in the body of the essay. So, the type or the genre of the piece of literature you are writing about. Remember, the genre is for the picture of Dorian Gray. It's gothic, right? It's dark. Um, then we have an analysis of the characters. So you need to understand who your characters are and how do they fit in. Okay, and what are their roles in the novel or the drama. Then you need to look at the analysis of the main ideas and the plot. Okay, so these are you need to look at your plot summary for this, right? And you also need to have an understanding of the book or the story or the novel or the drama as a whole to understand what the main ideas and the plots are. Then you need to review the theme or the themes. Remember, you get two types of themes. You have your major themes, and these themes that are found throughout a novel or drama, right? And then you also have your minor themes. So they will be present so the minor themes will be present in maybe in one or two chapters of a novel or an act of a drama. So understand what the themes are. So remember, themes are recurring thoughts and ideas in a piece of literature. So remember, you need to know your characters, you need to know your plot or your main ideas. Then you also need to understand your themes. Okay. Then you need to describe some of the symbolism of the piece of literature. So do you know what some of the symbols are? For the picture of Dorian Gray, it is the portrait itself or the picture, right? Um, then also, I think it's an Othello where flowers is a symbolic of the nature of, I think it is Ophelia, right? Then we have, so you need to understand the symbols, right? And you need to understand what they are symbolic of. Next, we need to comment or discuss the structure or the writing style. Okay, so why it was written in a certain era, what was the writer trying to criticize, did the writer do it effectively, what was the writer trying to show us that was happening at that point in time. Okay, so depending on the question, okay, it is important to include an interpretation of the meaning or the images if they are important for the understanding of the main ideas. So, in other words, you always need to discuss, you always need to give a little bit of, include an interpretation, right, or the meaning of certain images, okay, if it is important or if it enhances your argument or your discussion. Next one, how to write the literary essay. So you must focus on the topic. Okay, how do we focus on the topic? We need to understand the question that is being asked. So many times they give you a statement first, and then thereafter they give you the question. So you need to highlight, right, the things or the words, right, that you interpret as important. Okay, so that will be the topic of discussion. So you need to focus on the topic. So you need to read the question you are analyzing thoroughly, and it is important that you understand the author or writer's idea, the plot, and the characters. Okay, then we have read the question twice. I don't know why, but I'm sorry, I'm having visitors flying in. Okay, but anyway, so yeah, so read the question twice. Very often you read it once and you basically just skimming and scanning, right? It's important for you to read the question twice, okay, so that you can be sure of what the question is asking you to do. Okay, so read the question twice to ensure that you have a good literary understanding of what you need to write about and how to answer it. Next up, try to answer these questions. Try to answer these specific questions while writing. Okay, so which parts of the text were remarkable, amazing, or notable, or extraordinary to you as the reader? Okay, remember, literature essay, literature paper in general teaches you to formulate opinions, okay, and your own ideas. So that's why it's important for you to understand which parts of the text was extraordinary to you, okay. Then, why the writer used these literary devices, okay, and what are the literary devices that the writer is using. So why he's used it and what are the literary devices that he's using. Okay, so do you see the development of the characters? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of development of the character quickly. When we're looking at the picture of Dorian Gray, unfortunately, I'm going to use Dorian Gray as point of reference because that is the book or the novel that we are covering at our school. So do you see the development of the characters? So Dorian Gray goes from a sweet, young, innocent boy, and he is corrupted, right, at the end of the novel, right? Or so, how does his character develop into a sweet young boy, right, innocent, to a man with such an ugly soul? So you look at that and you try and understand how he developed. So you must know that point, evidence, explanation, link. Okay, then you need to try to find connections between the ideas and the plot, the character's behavior, and the changes in their role in the text. Okay, so how does the character change in the text? Good examples again, right? You look at Ophelia, you look at Hamlet, you look at Dorian Gray, you look at Basil Hallward, and you ask yourself, how did their roles change in the text? What caused their roles to change in the text? Okay, and their behavior how has their behaviors changed in the text? What caused their behaviors to change? Okay, so look for connections between the ideas and the plots, right? And the character. Try to make the connections. Okay, next one. So here you're going to collect evidence. Okay, so in order to write a good point or in order to tell us exactly what you are saying, right, you need to be able to make the connections first. Then you need to collect evidence, right? What is your evidence, right? These are facts, expressions to make a reasonable conclusion in your analysis. Remember, we're not asking you to quote from the text verbatim or verbatim from the text, word for word, right? But we need to see that you have understanding, right? And you understand what the evidence is, right? So you can put the evidence as support for your point. Okay, so make notes while you're reading. It's so important. And I often tell the learners, leave a little bit of your thoughts behind in a book or a piece of literature work. So make notes, highlight it, underline it, and pass down voice or your opinion about a certain text. So it's important for me that when you are reading, you are not just reading with your eyes, you are actually using a highlighter or a pencil or a pen and leaving a bit of your thoughts behind for the next reader. Next, learn more information about the author or writer. This is why we also have the background check of a writer, right? Because when we understand the background about the writer, or we have some information about the writer, no, this will help us to understand his or her intention and thoughts better. Right? So we have a better understanding of the writer. When we have more information about the writer, or we have background information about the writer, we understand the text as a whole better, okay? Because we now get a better understanding of the writer's intentions and thoughts. Okay, so what was happening in a certain period of time? What was happening during the time when that book or novel was written? Then, write a plan. Planning is always important, guys. You need to always do your planning before your final piece of work or your final draft. You always need to do planning. You don't necessarily have to do a rough draft, but you need to do planning. Okay. So, write a plan. This is an important part of the writing process. It helps you to understand what you will start with and what you will say in your conclusion. Remember that your conclusion, your introduction and your conclusions should sort of mirror each other. Okay, so no new information in your conclusion. Ensure that you have included the important ideas of the author or the writer. Next, develop your main thesis or statement idea. Okay, I also say this is a topic sentence. This is your point, and this is also what you're going to say. So, communicate your idea and explain why your arguments are significant. Okay, how are your ideas and thoughts connected to the ideas and thoughts of the author or the writer of the book, novel, or drama? You are now ready to write your analysis. So, in other words, you have now you have gone through the thought process. You have chosen either you're going to write the literature essay or you're going to do the contextual questions. So now you have now done your planning, right? You can do a planning on. I advise my learners to read both essay questions first, right? And then to do a little bit of a planning on the question paper itself, understand certain words and understand what the question is asking you, right? So once you understand that, you then decide which essay will be better for you to write. Okay, which essay would you make the most of if you should choose an essay? Next. Okay, writing and revising your essay. You need to have and maintain your topic sentence or your statement thesis, your main idea, or your point. Okay, so you devote a separate paragraph to each statement. And this is my advice. In order to keep your, in order for you to keep the focus per paragraph, I advise my learners to always try and keep one. So, in other words, if you are discussing people's characters, your characters, and you're doing character analysis, try to use one paragraph per character and analyze only that character's um, and analyze only that character per paragraph. So, in other words, you need to have and maintain your topic, right? State your topic sentence or your statement thesis point or what you are saying, and devote a separate paragraph to each statement. So, in other words, if you're going to talk about Hamlet's character, you use one paragraph and you only discuss Hamlet's character. If you're going to speak about Ophelia, you only use one paragraph and you only discuss Ophelia. Okay. Then, after completing your essay, read your work again with a fresh perspective. Okay, so once you've done writing and you've completed your entire paper, right, go back to your essay again, right? Because now you've sort of read, you've done everything, you're more relaxed at the end of your paper, and then you reread your essay to see if it does make sense. Check that you have maintained your argument. Check that you have applied the Peel method. Next up, the outline of your essay should, this is a general statement, right? So the outline of your essay The outline of the essay will ensure the success of your entire essay. So if you have done, you have planned effectively, you know what your introduction is going to be looking like, you have an idea of each paragraph, what each paragraph is going to contain, or what a topic sentence is for each paragraph, then um, your starting ideas are the things with which you can end your essay. So, in general, your outline should contain an introduction. Remember, introduction is to create an atmosphere of is supposed to create. In other words, I like to tell my learners basically is why would I want to read this essay? You should ask yourself that question. Why would I want to read this essay? And that is what your introduction should tell me. Why I need to read your essay. Right? It's supposed to create suspense, captivating. It's like a teaser, right? When you're going to watch a movie and you're going to write, and they thought, why would you want to go write a movie? Because you've seen the shorts of the movie, the teaser to the movie. So that is what your introduction basically does. Then we have to have your body or your supporting paragraph. So when I say body, I mean that your body needs to be divided in 2 to 3 paragraphs, right? So you need your body has to have supporting paragraphs. Okay. So you have your introduction, you skip a line, paragraph 2, then we have paragraph 3, paragraph 4, right? Etc. etc. Then this part includes your main statements, ideas with evidence from the text which supports them. So in other words, in each paragraph, right, of your body, you you should have a point, evidence, explanation, link structure going on. Okay, so in each supporting paragraph of your body, you need to have your main ideas and you need to have the evidence from the text which supports them, and you need to explain and then link that back to either the question or the next paragraph. Then in your conclusion, it includes the restatement of your main thesis and your conclusions on it. Okay, so it includes the restatement of your main thesis. In other words, it needs to go back to what you have been saying all the time, right? Remember, you do not add new information here. Okay, you are simply solidifying what you have already said in your introduction and in the body of your essay. Next up. Okay, so this is basically, and this is an example that I got from the internet. Okay, so this is basically what your point, evidence, explanation, and link should look like. So this is what your paragraph should look like, more or less. Okay, so you state the point, and there we have it in red. First of all, removing wild animals from their natural habitats is incredibly cruel. Okay, so now we have support, okay, which is our evidence. And then when kept captive, these beautiful creatures become bored and lonely, often leading to a condition called zoochosis. Animals suffering from zoochosis begin performing anxious, repetitive acts such as rocking back and forth, swaying, grooming themselves excessively, and vomiting. Right? Now we have the evidence, and now we need to explain the evidence. Okay? So this clearly, conditions such as this clearly demonstrate that wild animals belong in the wilderness, not in restrictive prison-like enclosures. Then we have the link to the topic. Okay, so we're linking it back to our topic of discussion. Animals must be freed from zoos now, so that this terrible suffering and mental torture ends for good. So you see, they're reinstating what they said in the beginning or in their introduction and in their topic sentence or in their point. Okay. Next up. Yeah, I've highlighted a paragraph from a Hamlet essay for you, okay, so that you can see or get a clearer indication of of what of sorry of what it looks like for you actually as a learner. Okay, so while Hamlet's melancholy is loaded, and this is your point, remember. So while Hamlet's melancholy is loaded with philosophic turmoil, and contradictions, Ophelia silently suffers her melancholy, driving her not only insane but ultimately in her death. Okay, so Burton would argue that Ophelia was a habitual melancholic, that she fully embraced the sadness in her life, allowing it to ultimately consume her. Right? Okay, so that is the point that you are making. So comparing Hamlet to Ophelia, we see that there is a distinct difference between their mental head spaces. Okay, so that is the point that the writer is saying. So the writer is saying that although they have both suffered, or they both were melancholic, right? They both experienced different levels of melancholy. Okay, then we'll see that in the blue, that is the people in the play. Okay, so this is now, we're taking now some evidence from the text. Okay, people in the play, however, react to Hamlet and Ophelia's madness differently. A gentleman reports to Gertrude that her speech is nothing, yet the unshaped use of it doth move the hearts of to the collection. Doth move the hearers to the collection. Sorry about that. They yawn at it and hotch the words up in their own thoughts. So they will see. So they will see quite a little, a whole extract basically, and that is your example from the text, right? So next we'll go to the explanation of the example. Right? So now we'll see how it two sort of marries each other. Okay, so then we see it seems as though many people are trying to attribute meaning to Ophelia's words, yet comparing this to Hamlet, who was disregarded as mad from the beginning. Ophelia, throughout the play, never truly speaks for herself, simply doing the bidding of her father. Obviously, she'll go crazy. Brother and possible lover Hamlet. Yet even in her mad rambles, Ophelia is still never allowed her own voice. They are those trying to interpret her words and put meaning into her madness. So, in other words, they're trying to make sense of Ophelia's madness. However, she was never really heard. Her voice was never really heard. So, everybody always paid attention to Hamlet and who he was and the space that he was in. However, Ophelia never had a voice. And and this is how you need to connect the characters to the themes to the main ideas. Okay, that's your okay. So that is your explanation of the extract. Then in your concluding sentence, right, or your sorry, point evidence, and in your linking sentence, concluding sentence, linking sentence of your paragraph for your body. Okay, so Hamlet, however, always speaks and people always listen, whether they think he is mad or not. Perhaps it is the ability to speak and be listened to that allowed him to remain a dispositioned melancholy rather than the habitual melancholic Ophelia is driven to become. Okay, so that is an example of the text from Hamlet. That is the Peel method. Okay, so there you will see point, evidence, explanation, and your link. Next up. So at the end of this, and I want you guys to please refer to the video, okay? Because I've noticed that the youngsters work quite well with videos. It helps them better. I've also forwarded my learners a whole picture of Dorian Gray videos that they can have a look at and they can use questions and answers help you. However, do not spot. Please do not spot. Okay, know how to answer the question when it's asked. Okay, so remember, like I said right in the beginning, I said, guys, do not spot. The old or past exam questions is merely a point of revision where you learn to understand how to answer the questions, learn to understand what it is that the examiner is asking of you. Okay, so I've included there on the PowerPoint a video, right, that illustrates how to write an effective introduction to a literature essay. And then I've also attached some exercises which comes from the 2021 question paper. Okay, so it's always 400 to 450 words. A lot of the times, my learners ask me, how are we going to get 400 to 450 words? If you follow what I've said now and you do a good introduction, you do your body well enough, 2 to 3 paragraphs, and you do your conclusion, then you should get 400 to 450 words. Remember, each paragraph has its own topic sentence, evidence, explanation, and link. Okay, so that is how each paragraph should look. Okay, so some of the questions I've asked, and I only highlighted for the first question, right? So that you can also get an understanding of how you need to go about it. So, how do you highlight it? Okay, so the novel exposes, write an essay of 400 to 450 words, choose one of the following topics. So, the novel exposes the superficial and hypocritical nature of its main characters and the society in which they live in. So, here, right, so that is the statement. Okay, so now you need to critically discuss the extent to which you agree with the statement. Okay, so you need to tell me, first, you need to tell me, do you agree with the statement that the novel exposes superficial and hypocritical nature of the characters and in the society that they are part of at the time? First, you need to tell me who the characters are, right? You need to understand what the words superficial and hypocritical mean. Then you need to know who our main characters are, and then you need to understand what era or what type of society they were living in at that time. Okay, then you need to critically discuss the extent to which you agree with the statement. Then you need to tell me, do you agree with the statement, yes or no? Right? Then, and that you will tell me in your introduction. Right? Then, who are your main characters? If you know who your main characters are, so for the picture of Dorian Gray, the main characters would be Dorian Gray, obviously. There will be Basil Hallward, and there is Lord Henry Wotton, also known as Harry. Okay, or also referred to as Harry by Basil Hallward at times. So once you know those three characters, right? Are they superficial and are they hypocritical? Right? You need to understand that. How are they superficial and hypocritical? Right? So now what you're going to do, and I'm so silly, I should have actually done this on the PowerPoint. What you're going to do is your introduction, strong, powerful. Give me a little bit background information about the Victorian era, who your main characters are, and yes or no, the, it was superficial and hypocritical. Then you're going to tell me in your first paragraph, you're going to refer to maybe Dorian Gray only. So you only speak about whether or not Dorian Gray is superficial and hypocritical, right? And and also tell me how that sort of relates to the society, the Victorian society that he is a part of at the time. Right. So critically discuss. So you need to look into detail, be critical about your discussion. Okay, so tell me, does it warrant his behavior as superficial and hypocritical? How does it warrant his behavior as superficial and hypocritical? Okay, so you need to here have knowledge about the words superficial and hypocritical, what it means, right? You need to understand who your main characters are. You need to understand the society the that Wilde wrote the book in. Okay, what type of society the Victorian society was. Then we look at the second question, and this is from Life of Pi. Okay, I do not do Life of Pi at my school, so I would please tell learners to um, same as any piece of literature work. Know your characters, know your themes, know your symbols, know your plot summary. Okay, so let's look at the question by Pi. So Pi's ability to enjoy his ordeal may be attributed to his relationship with Richard Parker, his mother, and the French cook. Okay, so what first now you need to understand what ordeal did Pi endure? Okay, how did he endure his ordeal? Okay, so what ordeal he endured? okay, and how he endured the ordeal. Okay, so and how, so now you need to make a connection, okay, between Pi's relationship with Richard Parker, his mother, and the French cook. So now you need to understand those characters as well. So you need to look at Pi's character, number one. Okay, you need to tell me what ordeal he endured, how he endured that ordeal, right? Then you need to look at I think it's a theme of relationships, right? So you need to look at his relationship with Richard Parker. So you need to understand Richard Parker's character. You need to look at his relationship with his mother, right? Who is his mother and what his relationship was with her. Then you also need to look at who the French cook is, right? And how he what his relationship is with Pi, okay, and how these relationships, okay, so Pi's relationships, right, with Richard Parker, what did he learn from Richard Parker? His mother, what did he learn from his mother? And then the French cook, right, and what he learned from the French cook, and how his relationship with these individuals, right, help him to endure, okay, the ordeal that he experienced or he, yeah, so how these relationships that help him endure his ordeal. So you need to know what ordeal he experienced, okay. Then the next one, deception and manipulation are central to the tragic consequences in the play Hamlet. Okay, so critically discuss the extent to which you agree with the above statement. So, deception and manipulation. First, you need to understand these two words. Okay, what does deception mean? What does it mean to manipulate? And how does manipulation, how is it shown in the drama of Hamlet? Okay, what are the tragic consequences? Okay, so how is deception and manipulation central? Right, so you highlight that. Okay, and then what are the tragic consequences in the play? So in Hamlet, some of the tragic consequences: Polonius getting killed, Ophelia's suicide. Um, at the end of the play, everybody dies, right? So you need to understand the tragic consequences of people's action. So now you also need to understand the theme of action versus inaction. Okay, you need to understand the tragic consequences. You need to understand the words deception and manipulation. Okay, and then you have to bring it all together to show how. So now you need to discuss the extent to which you agree with the above statement. So again, do I agree with it? Yes or no? And then why do I agree with it or why I don't agree with it? And then you need to find examples, right, of tragic consequences, okay, how those tragic consequences came about, okay, and how it could have been prevented as well. Okay, next one. Deception and manipulation are central to the topic, to the tragic consequences in the play. So this is again, and I want you to take note that in the drama section, okay, deception and manipulations are central to most dramas. Okay, so especially with Shakespeare. Okay, so you need to take note of that. So what was he trying to tell us? Okay, at the time. So now again, you need to understand Othello. You need to understand what the tragic consequences are, right? And then you also need to look and understand the words deception and manipulation. Okay. Then the last one is the Crucible. This is also a drama that's being, so it's Hamlet, Othello, and the Crucible. And these are the three dramas that we study. Okay, so deception and manipulation are central to the tragic consequences in the play of the Crucible, right? So now you also need to understand the Crucible. Look at the tragic consequences. I can't really remember the tragic consequences anymore because I think I did this last at university. So the tragic consequences of the play or the drama, and then also talk about deception and manipulation. Okay, and then you need to tell me, do you agree with the statement? Yes or no. So then you find the pros and cons to substantiate you whether you agree or disagree with this statement. Okay, a kind reminder to our learners, right? When you get when you receive your paper two, it's important that you read all the instructions. Okay, so we did this last week, but I'm just going to reiterate it again. It's important for you to read all your instructions and understand it clearly. It is important that you only stick to the genres that you have studied at work, I mean at school, right? So if you have done Life of Pi or The Picture of Dorian Gray. So those are the two novels. So Life of Pi and The Picture of Dorian Gray. So those are your two novels, right? So you do the one that you have studied at school. Okay, don't put yourself under unnecessary pressure and don't create anxiety and stuff. Just stick to what you know. Okay. The dramas that we cover at schools is Hamlet, Othello, and The Crucible. So those are the three dramas. You choose the one that you have studied at school. Okay. And then also another note. And I will try to put this in next week's paper, next week's lesson. The outline, the general outline of the paper, you should have received an old question papers by now already for you to work through, right, on your own, so you can familiarize yourself with the paper, okay, and how the setting of the paper. So know that you cannot write in sections B and C, right? If you choose a contextual question in section B, you must, you need to do the essay in section C, right? The same as, and vice versa. So if you do the essay for the novel, section B, right, you need to, or you must do the contextuals in section C, okay, which is the drama, okay. If you do not do that, right, or if you, and you decide to write two essays or two essays, or you decide to do two contextual questions, they will scrap the one. Okay, so the final one they will scrap, they will give you a cool Rona Naliki. Okay, so remember, very important, and these sometimes you see learners writing good essays for both, right? But unfortunately, we just draw a line through it, and that's the end of that. So you'll only get the mark for the one section. Okay, remember, learners, important, when you do an essay in section B for your novel, you must do the contextuals in section C, your drama. Okay, I think that is a wrap. So remember, practice, practice, practice. Don't spot. Okay, know and understand the questions and try to answer it to the best of your ability. And know your characters, know your themes, know your symbols, know your plot summary, right? And understand how to do the literature essay, how to do the poetry essay, and you will be perfect. Okay, do apply the skills that you have been taught to do in class. Get past exam papers, work through it, okay, and you will be okay. Okay, so I think that's a wrap for us today. So next week we'll be focusing on your our paper three, inshallah. So I hope this videos and the PowerPoints is helpful to you, and you can make the best of it. And may Allah grant you knowledge and understanding. May He grant you only that which is beneficial to you. And all of the best for our learners writing RS tomorrow, right? May Allah grant understanding and knowledge.
Ameen. Ameen. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Shukran very much to you, Mrs. Dastagir, for today's lesson. We look forward to having you back next week. Remember, the session is recorded. It will remain on our Facebook and YouTube platforms. Please do like and share, as you never know who could benefit from these lessons. So, from myself and my guests this afternoon, we bid you farewell. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran for having me, Conita. Have an awesome day.
Pleasure, always a
Assalamu
pleasure.
alaikum.
Alhamdulillah.